Welcome to Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed. Get ready to dive into the world of nonprofits, where the nerdy passion and unstoppable dedication of those making a real impact is celebrated. Together with your host, Jarrett Ransom, the inspiring stories and game-changing strategies of nonprofit leaders will be explored. Join us to unravel the mysteries of successful fundraising, uncover the secrets to effective advocacy, and nerd out over innovative approaches to solving social challenges. Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed is your go-to podcast for no-nonsense discussions with real-life superheroes of the nonprofit sector. Get ready to unleash your inner nerdiness and discover or rediscover how to change the world together. Now let's dive in and embrace the power of our nerdy side.
This next guest is someone who I am so honored to not only call a colleague, but a friend. Listen in to hear what Joelle Kanshepolsky has to share with you. And once again, this is someone that I know our conversation could go well beyond today's podcast recording and into, oh my gosh, the evening, the morning, like so many days. In fact, we talked about planning our own self-care retreat for the two of us. So listen in to hear what Joelle has to share with you. It left me with goosebumps on my body. So many amazing connections were made during this conversation. And again, immense shout out of gratitude to this season's sponsor, Fundraising Academy at National University. Thank you. Joelle, how the heck are you, my friend?
I am good. How are you?
I am good. I'm enjoying the day. I'm enjoying my calendar. I'm enjoying like the work that I get to do. It's very rewarding. And I love with you, this is a little different. I feel it's a little different conversation because you and I have met in person. We've had coffee together. We've given each other like a true hug over the years. But tell us a little bit about yourself. And I love to ask this question a little differently. What are some of the names that people call you? What are the titles you go by? Like, how are you referred to in this big wide world that you explore?
Well, I am raising teenagers, so I think I'm called lots of things that I don't want to admit. And maybe people call me things and I don't even know. But I will say, when you asked how I'm doing, I'm in Salt Lake City and we have
Yeah.
had quite the tease of spring. I just have to say, it was like beautiful and sunny and 60 degrees last week. And then, like, now it's like hailing and snowing and raining. And so I think sometimes people call me like a pessimist with winter because I'm like over it and I'm the unusual person in Utah who wants the snow to go away. But I will
Done. Yeah.
say, yes, exactly. But I will say, I have lots of titles that people give me, as I know you do as well. I would say mom is probably, one that is closest to my heart.
Yeah.
Friend, sister, aunt, I'm a daughter, I'm a daughter-in-law, I'm a wife. That's at the bottom of the list somehow. I'm a partner and owner of my firm. And I actually have a mug that a former team members gave me that just says the boss. And so I think for some people I'm also a boss, and I actually take that term with pride. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh, I
Those are
love
some
that.
off the
And
top of my head, but I feel like we all wear lots of titles, right?
we do. Yeah, we wear lots of titles. And you mentioned sister, and I want to give a shout out to your sister because she is our origin story.
Yes.
She is the one that said, you've got to meet my friend, Jarrett, and you've got to meet Joelle, my sister. I just love that story. And every time, like, that comes up for me as a memory, it always makes me smile. So again, shout out to your sister for this matchmaking.
Totally. Well, it should, because she went and heard you and she like called me afterwards and was like, I met someone like you, because she's in a whole different world, right? And she's always had this like social justice warrior sister. And she was like, this woman was so impressive in her story. And so she just thinks you're amazing. And she has to think I'm amazing because she's my sister, but she just thinks the world of you. So I love that story also.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. Well, you wear a lot of hats. So, like, how many hats do you wear? I love the coffee mug reference, the boss. Like, it makes me think in Spanish, it's el jefe, or, the female term of that, which I think you speak multiple languages. Am I
I do
correct in
speak
this?
Spanish, but I don't even know the feminine verb. I say jefe. I don't know what it is for. I've never heard jefa, so I don't know. That's a good question. I'll have to
Right.
look it up. But yes,
Yeah. We'll have to look that up.
yeah, lots
Yeah.
of
Tell me
hats.
about all the hats.
Lots of hats,
Mhm.
Jared, just like you and like so many women, right? I mean, I feel like I was just having this conversation with my husband, and I just don't know that he totally gets it. I love him, but I'm like, I don't know that you totally get like the pressure that women are under. Usually that is different. But I'm running my business. I'm also, so I work on the business, but I'm also in the business. I'm in projects for my business, which is consulting for the nonprofit government sector and also philanthropic advisors. We have about a 20 plus person team that I'm supporting. I'm in an interim philanthropy director role like you. We serve these interim roles for nonprofits, so that's a whole nother hat. All while trying to plan college visits with my 16-year-old son. We're heading to California next week to look at colleges. I can't believe I'm here. And my daughter simultaneously is going on a eighth grade trip to Washington, D.C. And so she's very anxious about traveling without us. She gets sick on airplanes. And so trying to get her calm. And so it's like all those hats simultaneously, day in and day out, right? And so lots of
Yeah.
hats.
I remember too, we were sitting down having coffee in Salt Lake City because, as you know, I spend some of my time of the year in Utah as well, in Park City. And I believe you were telling me a story about a home renovation. Now, was this a rental renovation? Because that adds another layer to your plate.
Yes. Yes. I mean, yeah, let alone, caring for family members or anything that's going on with friends. Yes. So we own our home. We're privileged to own our home in Salt Lake. And like a lot of homes in my neighborhood, it's old. And lots of the renovations that happened was just like hodgepodge, like, oh, my uncle knows how to fix homes. So he's going to build this addition. And so we had this hodgepodgey home, and we were doing it during COVID. We didn't have the money to like scrape it, which is probably what it needed. So we kind of added to the hodgepodgey renovation, but we did it with a professional. And so we did renovate the whole first floor of our house. And it was a labor of love. I am not skilled at home design. I don't actually like think about decor. Like I will, when we talk about what I do for fun, I'll talk more about like my love of travel. So instead of like planning design or whatever for my home, I'm like planning trips. So I will say that it has been a labor of love. It's not even finished, like there's blank walls behind me, but that was a hat I was wearing at that time as well, trying to be the general contractor without the skill set. So yeah,
Oh my
it's nice to
gosh.
be back.
Well,
It's nice to be in it now. We moved out and lived in one of our rental properties in a tiny little house for the four of us, which was also kind of fun. So
oh, I bet you've got some good stories and probably some better stories, right?
for sure, for
A
sure.
variety.
Yes, doing
Yeah.
it during
Well,
like we couldn't get material, like nothing was available. It was super tricky. And so, and it was overwhelming. I was in an interim CEO role at the time and doing lots of other projects. And, my daughter, I remember saying to me like, "Oh, mom, you're so overwhelmed, you're so overworked, like just stop doing something." And I was like, "Yes, and the things I'm doing have been a choice." And we have to I needed to remember and stay grounded with privilege, like being able to do this house while so many people are unhoused. Like, yeah, it felt stressful, but like keep it in perspective. And so and I had a friend who tragically lost her husband very suddenly in his mid 40s during that time also. And it was like, I don't really care what kinds of appliances I get. Like, my friend just lost her life partner. And so just keeping it in perspective while wearing all those hats, I think is super important.
wow. Well, how do you manage this all, right? Like there's a lot going on with personal, there's a lot going on with professional. How do you maintain, I'm going to say like, regulation, personal regulation, but like just back to, I don't even know where to start, but back to like, how do you do it all? How do you handle all of the things that are on your plate, all of the things on your calendar? What does that look like for you?
Well, sometimes I make mistakes and drop balls. Like a few weeks ago, my daughter texted me and she was like, I'm not getting picked up for a soccer carpool. I'm pretty sure we were supposed to drive there. And I was like, oh my God, I got it wrong. So I would say, I do the best I can. I make mistakes. I sometimes have to say, hey, I didn't show up as my best self. That's usually like with my kids and my husband. I have to kind of own that I try to do it all, but I drop balls and I make mistakes. So I would say that maybe to outsiders, I see, like, I have friends that be like, oh my gosh, you're always doing so much. And then you take on more and it seems more seamless than it probably is. And maybe we do ourselves a disservice, right? By not being honest. So I will just say, not always doing it well, not always showing up as my best self, not always doing the self-care I should. But I don't know, Jarrett, how do you handle it all? You have so many things on your plate. I mean, I'm always amazed by all the things that you do. So it's tricky, that work-life balance. I always say it's like work-life harmony. I think I read somewhere is probably more my goal. But how do you
Yeah.
do it all?
Everything you just shared, I'm like, no wonder your sister said I met another version of you, because I mirrored everything, right? It's like, oh no, I totally forgot this, or I totally let that ball slip through, or like it happens. Mistakes happen. I mean, I am the guilty one. I put too much on my plate. And as you said, it's my choice. I have always said, like, I thrive in organized chaos. And not everyone does, but I feel that I do. And hearing from you, Joelle, maybe you do as well.
I think I probably do as well. I do think there's like probably a breaking point, and as I'm approaching my 50th year, I think I'm trying to be a lot more introspective around, like, creating the life that I want, and as I said, people say like work-life balance. I'm like, I think it's harmony. I was thinking, I just had my weekly partner meeting with my 3 partners, and I think that's such a great example of this idea of harmony. Like, 2 of my 3 partners, they were friends of mine beforehand. They weren't super close friends, but we already had that relationship. And now we've been able to build on that. And I actually love running a business with them. And my 4th partner, who I didn't know as well, but I'm grateful to spend, I spend so much time with my partners to have these strong, bold, capable women as my partners. Like, to me, I think that's harmony, right? Where it's not like work-life balance and work is here and life is here. That's not very realistic. It's much more integrated than that. And we all see those other sides of our lives. And so I think in my 50th year, I've been thinking about harmony and what that looks like and what that means to me versus balance, because I don't honestly feel balanced much of the time, right? It's just not achievable, I think, for me. So harmony feels like the better word.
Yeah, and that resonates with me as well. I want to say could have been 2017. I wrote an article about how I don't subscribe to work-life balance. I don't think it exists. For me, it doesn't exist. I believe in a work-life blend, which is very
Oh,
similar,
blend.
perhaps,
Yeah,
to
I like that.
harmony. Yeah,
Mhm.
and again, speaking from a place of privilege, I have the ability to choose when I start my day, when I end my day, and maybe even again when I restart my day later in the evening or afternoon or a weekend, whatever that might look like, realizing not everyone has that privilege, not everyone has that ability. I thankfully do. I also thankfully have the privilege of travel, and I would love to hear from you because, again, another commonality. Most of my Pinterest board are places that I want to go. Like, where are the places I want to travel? What are the
Totally.
things I want to see? The food I want to eat? So, is
Mhm.
that what you do for, I'm going to say, self-care or fun? Like, when do you really look at travel?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that's what I do for fun. I think it is also self-care and relaxation. I feel like day to day, realistically, I don't do as much travel as I want. I get pretty regular massages. I would say that's like probably my big self-care thing. I get my hair colored. I always say, like, that's my one vanity. Like, my nails aren't ever done. I don't get facials, like all the other things I would love to do for myself, I don't do. So travel is definitely, yes, something that I do for self-care, relaxation, and fun. I would say all those things. And then day to day, like I'm the extreme extrovert, which I know we also have in common. I get energy from people. So seeing my friends is really important. This morning, I went on a walk/hike with a girlfriend I hadn't seen in a while. It was like, my dog needs exercise. I'm going to block it out from 9 to 10. And we just, it's cold. We bundled up and we walked with our hot tea and just saw that friend, and it just fills my cup. And so I think for me, that is self-care and relaxation, is getting to connect with friends. Working out, again, I don't do it enough, but I mean, I got to combo. It wasn't exactly a workout, but a walk and getting to see a friend for me was just like perfect. And then travel, yes, I'm always planning trips. And so I think about travel all the time.
Yeah.
And that's definitely
Okay.
one of the things that like makes it fills my cup. It's something I think about all the time. Sometimes it feels like more self-care and relaxation than other times, depending on the trip, I would say.
Depending on the trip.
If
I
the
want to
children are
circle
with
back.
me or not.
That's true. Yeah. Well, how many suitcases, how many itineraries? I want to circle back to the massage, because you said regular massages. What does regular mean? How often are you going? How long are the massages? That's a guilty
Let's
pleasure
get
of
in
mine
there.
as well. I love body work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is it like?
I used to get massages more regularly, but I invested, if I turned my camera, you could see, in a massage chair. My kid's
Oh,
orthodontry office. By the way, my son's never had braces. Hopefully Dr. Graham's not listening, but he's been going to the orthodontist every 6 months since he was 8, and ended up, he's 16, is not getting braces because he doesn't need them. So every 6 months I'd be like, oh, I'm going to sit in this massage chair while you go talk to the orthodontist about not needing braces, for like 8 years. And so one day I was like, I should get one of these. And so when we did our home renovation, I invested in a massage chair. It was pretty low end. There were nicer ones, but I did the math and I was like, this is equivalent of a year's of massages. So I'm just going to get less massages and do preventative with my massage chair. I also got a hot tub in my renovation. So I have now like a whole system of how to help my body feel better. So I now get massages probably more like once a month, but I was doing probably every other week. I have some chronic pain stuff and chronic migraines and other things. And so for me, it's more of a preventative. It's not relaxing necessarily. It's more self-care because it's pretty painful for me, but they have been a critical part, I think, to me feeling better. And so I'm a big believer. And like I said, my fingernails never look pretty. I have lots of friends whose nails look pretty, and I'm like, it's not going to happen, but I'm going to keep my massages. So big believer of all different kinds. When I lived in Southeast Asia for 3 months, many, many years ago, I would get lots of Thai massages, which I loved. And I would love to find someone locally who could do that, because that's more like stretching, and my body felt really good. So acupuncture, all those things I've dabbled in.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I'm so lucky. My neighbor and her husband, they're both acupuncturists, and she'll even say, "Come over anytime and I'll poke you," right? And it's like, I feel so honored, and I don't want to take advantage of it because she's got 3 kids, they're business owners. Like, there's a lot going on between our households. But I know she means it, and she's done cupping on
Oh,
me,
I love
cupping in
cupping.
a massage way. Similar to you, massage is not always relaxing for me. It doesn't always feel good. I hold on to a lot of stress in my body. I have a lot of chronic pain as well. Most recently, my TMJ has really been flaring up, and I go to the chiropractor. And believe it or not, Joelle, like, they'll put their gloves on, they'll stick their finger inside my mouth, and they will adjust my jaw. I hear it pop, but then they hear this huge this huge sigh of like, oh, that felt amazing.
I've had the same thing. We are literally the same person, Jarrett. I also have terrible TMJ, and it is pretty excruciating,
It
and
is.
I have to get coming up, this is TMI, but I have to get an endoscopy and then the colonoscopy because I'm turning 50, but I have to do an endoscopy for a whole other reason. And my whole conversation with the gastroenterologist was like, but how long do you prop my mouth open? And she was like, these are
Yeah.
very strange questions. And I was like, okay, well, I have TMJ. She's like, most people are worried about the colonoscopy. The endoscopy is nothing. And I'm like, yeah, but you are propping my mouth open and
Yeah.
it is really painful afterwards. And she was like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
this is such a good conversation. So I feel you on the TMJ. I've also had people go into my mouth. It's been a while. So I feel like the next time I'm in Phoenix, I need to go to your person because
Yes.
yes, need to give that some care. But oh, Jared, we
Yes.
are like the same person. It's unbelievable. I think it's common for women to hold things, here And here,
Yeah.
I don't have stomach issues. I know a lot of women who hold things there. I'm grateful that I don't. I think I would be a big baby, but like the chronic pain is sort of like my MO, and I'm just used to it. But I get an upset
Yeah.
stomach and it's like the end of the day. So, the end of the world. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we just kind of learn to navigate through it.
Mhm. For
I'd
sure.
love to know, like, what are some other things that you do to manage your well-being? I talk openly, and I think I've shared with you about my own depression journey and how I manage my well-being and what that looks like. How, like, what shows up for you? What are some of the things that you're willing to share openly with our listeners and myself, with the whole intent, one, to be authentic, but two, like, I want listeners, especially in our nonprofit sector, because we show up to be of service to others, but how are you of service to yourself? Like, what are the things you're doing to maintain your personal well-being?
Yeah. Good question. I have done a lot of therapy. I'm not in
Yeah.
therapy now, but I probably off and on for 25 years. I have worked with a coach in past time. I've been in couples therapy with my husband. I've had both my kids in therapy before. We haven't done family therapy. That would be fun. I think that's probably in my future.
Can I just say, I love that you put therapy and fun in the same sentence.
Well, I grew up in an immigrant home, and I probably won't share
Mhm.
this podcast with my family. I grew up in an immigrant home, and like a lot of immigrant homes, and also just generational, like therapy was not a thing. We didn't talk about our issues
Mhm.
outside the home. And I remember the day I actually asked to go to therapy and said I needed it, and I was told no. And I think that a lot of us are attracted to this work in the sector because of our own things that we've gone through. And I would say that I am one of those people for sure. I had privilege as well, which I also acknowledge. And I also had adverse childhood experiences. I'm a kind of a geek with the ACEs studies and all of that around trauma. And I think that I'm not at the highest, I'm definitely not at the lowest. And so, and I also have a mother who had extreme, she would be a 10 when I've taken it for her. She's a 10 on the ACEs. And so I'm a believer in secondhand trauma and all those things that we take on. And so I think as we work in this sector, I learned pretty quickly that direct service was not for me, that was not my strength,
Yeah.
that I did not have that ability. And I've worked with some incredible and alongside incredible people in social services who have that ability to do direct service. That's not me. My strength is on the management side, the leadership side, the fundraising side. They're doing the tough work. I'm doing the easy work. And so I think it's really important to kind of take care of ourselves, recognize why we're doing the work we're doing, take care of the people around us, encourage them to do self-care, to kind of come at the work from a trauma-informed perspective, especially in social service work within the nonprofit sector, to recognize why people are attracted to this work. And I have been from a very young age. I've got lots of stories of how that all started. So I have done lots of things in my past around self-care. I will tell you that last year, as my daughter turned 13, I realized some things were coming up for me that probably go back to when I was 13 and I was having just some interesting experiences. And I had some moments in the last year where I was like, oh, I got some more work to do, or these things are still showing up for me. So it's kind of never over. It's ongoing. I've had to take a break from therapy for a while. I was kind of like over it and making sure my kids are, their mental health is sound, that I didn't really need it at those moments. But I will say that it's on my radar as I'm turning 50 this year, around what's the self-care that I need to continue to be doing. But as I said earlier, like for me, being with friends is like authentic relationships where you can talk about these real things and it's not like everything's great. And parenting's the best, but I can say like, oh, my kid's been a little swear word and it's frustrating, this teenager, why are they acting like this, right? And so having those authentic relationships where I'm not pretending that like I got it all figured out, or that my kids are the best, like we all have these challenges. I'm an avid reader, and I feel like I can lose my own stuff. I love historical fiction, and I think I can be in that place and I can let go of my own issues and, get some perspective. on whatever it is that I'm dealing with, because I'm really engrossed in whatever the character situations are. I also like get engrossed in, silly TV or series where like sometimes they hit too close to home, but sometimes it's like, oh, I can be in this story and be forgetting kind of my own, not forgetting, but not be as focused on my own stuff. I would love to say that I do more mindfulness than I do. I have brought mindfulness people in to do work with staffs when I'm an interim or whatever, and I'm like, I'm going to do more mindfulness, and then I really don't. So I like to pretend that I am like really great at meditating and doing mindfulness, but it's a practice and you have to exercise that muscle, and I do not do that enough. And it's also being forgiving, being gentle with yourself, forgiving yourself. Like I always say, if I could only talk to myself the way I support friends, right? And if you can look in the mirror and be that gentle with yourself in the way that you are with the people you love, where you're like, you're amazing. I want you to see your amazingness. If we could just reflect that for ourselves and be a little gentler, I think we can all be a little bit healthier. So those are all the things. I don't know if I even answered your question, Jarrett. I went off on a tangent, but those are the things that I'm thinking about today.
I think it's really hard to stay in a mindful setting, and mindful is really like connecting with the present, being where you are today, not being in yesterday, not being in tomorrow. I struggle with that for sure, but again, kudos to your sister, because I do feel like we are, you have dark hair, I have light hair. That's probably the only difference. Oh, and I don't speak Spanish, right? I pretend to.
Mine's so. Yeah.
Yeah, I pretend to. Someone recently, I had dinner the other night with someone I've met along the way, and she said, "You are one of my friends that is probably the most aware with yourself. Like you are very in tune with yourself, very aware of who you are." And my response was, "Thank you. It took a lot of therapy." Like I too have been in a lot of therapy, and a lot of what you shared is also the reason why, I'm here in the sector. So many great things, but as we wrap up our conversation,
I think you are highly self-aware. You have very high EQ. Like I do think that those are some of your, superhero strengths. So I agree with that. And I think I am too. Doesn't mean I'm always great at like taking the awareness and acting on it, but I do think I also have a pretty high level of self-awareness.
Yeah. I do too. I think you definitely do. I want to know, your next trip, is it within the States? Are you adding another stamp to your passport? As we wrap up our conversation today, and I know that we are long overdue for another cup of coffee or hot tea to sit down in person with one another, but where is your next trip?
And I would love that. I would love to see you soon over coffee or a hike or anything. Actually, I'm going to come to your house and get some acupuncture and then go to your chiropractor and get some TMJ work. Yeah. I will say I went to Colombia in January, just my husband and I. We had not been on a trip, the two of us, in so long that my daughter said, "You never leave me. You and Daddy have never left me." And I was like, "Oh, honey, this is the problem. You don't even remember the last trip we went on." And she's 13. So we went to Colombia and it was spectacular. And I fell in love with Medellin, and it's not on the beach and it's not hot. And it was like, but I love it and I want to live here. So that was amazing. In my 50th year, I said that I was going to step foot in a different country each of the 12 months of my 50th year. I think that was great in theory. I don't think it's very realistic, both budget wise, work wise, family wise. So we'll see what happens. But the one trip I am going to make, no matter what, that I've been dreaming about for 20 years is Rwanda. I want to go do some reconciliation work and understand in Kigali. I want to go trek with gorillas and chimpanzees, and I'm obsessed, and it's expensive, and I don't want anyone to go with me who's not as obsessed as I am. So I have some friends that were like, "Oh, maybe I'd go." I'm like, no, you're not invited. It's not a maybe. I'd be excited to go to Rwanda. So I, in my past life or future life, will be a biologist. I love everything animals, from bugs to gorillas and everything in between. And so Rwanda, I've been in Southern and Eastern Africa, but never to Rwanda. And so that is a big one on my list, Jarrett, that I'm so excited for. I've not planned it yet, but it's in my head. So
it's in your head. Well,
yeah.
I have chills all over my body hearing you talk about that. Africa is a place that I have got to visit. I went to Uganda, and it was my own type of like mission trip, if you will. So it holds a very special place in my heart and in my memories. Just so many good things. Well, you have referenced your 50th year quite a bit in this conversation. I want to honor you, say happy birthday, happy 50th, all these amazing trips around the sun that you've made and around the world, Joelle. You're doing some great work, and I'm just so honored to call you a colleague, but I'm more honored to call you a friend and to have you share these open dialogue conversations about your real self, your real challenges. I mean, raising teenagers in and of itself, that's
That's a one big hat.
feat.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
one
thank
huge
you.
sombrero.
Yes. Well, I'm
Yeah.
so proud of you with this podcast. Like I sometimes there's things I think about wanting to do and you like actually do them. And I'm just so proud of you and for you kind of pursuing where you want to focus next. You're always really good about like, I'm interested in taking this kind of work and that's what I'm going to put out into the universe. And then that's the work you're doing. And so I just love that about you and love that you're doing this podcast and so honored that you asked me to be on it. So thank you.
Oh, well, absolutely. For everyone listening, where can we find more about the work you do and where you do it? Is there a website, a social page that we can follow you on?
Yeah, we just rebranded my company. We are now the Pathway Group, and our website is pathwaygroup.co. That's a whole story unto itself, but it's like the new cool thing to be .co and not .com. So we are pathwaygroup.co. And you can find everything about my firm and my work and all the work that we do in the community in Utah, across the Mountain West, across the country on that website.
Awesome.
And
Well,
you can check me out on LinkedIn also.
definitely on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. And maybe when we're not recording a podcast, we can check our calendars and find out when are we going to get together again. I think you and I would really do well if we planned our own self-care day that included all of the things we talked about.
Oh my gosh, I have it in my sights. It's like
Yes.
Savannah in Phoenix or something. It's a day, Jarrett. It's at least a full day.
Yes.
In
It's a
warm
day.
weather.
It's a day.
Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful. Again, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.